welcome back to this second part of the Liverpool extravaganza for the Stacey West preview. Obviously, as you might know, I'm Jake Tonge. Today, again, I'm very fortunate to be joined by a good friend of mine and a former colleague as well, Georgia Goulding from Liverpool. Georgia, if you'd just like to introduce yourself a little bit about what you do and how you came to supporting the Reds, please.
Of course. So I'm currently a football writer for Snack Media. Fortunate enough to actually cover Liverpool. I also am temporarily covering Everton. I cover Chelsea as well. And Liverpool is it's in the family. It's one of those. I think at the moment people think Liverpool have got it easy, but need to kind of remember that the last 3 years doesn't reflect on the whole club history. There's been a lot of tough times, and I think for me it's still a bit surreal we've actually won stuff, so I'm just living in the moment and enjoying what we've got while we've got it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously coming as a Lincoln fan, we've won quite a few trophies in the last few years, so we know how you're feeling really, but obviously not as big as the trophies you might have won. But anyway, so if we just kick start, obviously Liverpool this weekend made the headlines, obviously apart from the win against Chelsea, but you know, 2 signings in 2 days, probably worth circa £75 million. You know, what have you made of those two signings?
Well, obviously, it's no secret Thiago's been highly speculated over. We've been linked to him since I think it was July, if not before. So I'm so glad that deal is finally over the line, because I do feel ever since Coutinho left, we've missed kind of someone who's gonna just take a punt and take a shot at goal and try and create more things from the engine room. So I think he can bring that. But Jota, like I didn't see that coming. It's like Thiago kind of flipped a switch and then it was like, oh, here we go, have another. Yeah. So delighted with that, but I didn't expect it at all.
And can you see either or all of them playing against Lincoln on Thursday night?
Jota could potentially be on the bench, but I do think Thiago could start, because I don't think Liverpool will. I think Liverpool will show Lincoln respect. I don't think they're going to field off a full kids team. There will be some youth guaranteed, but I think the likes of Thiago could get a start, because he didn't start against Chelsea, yet he did have a good game, so he might play the full 90.
Obviously, playing the kids is something that Liverpool have done quite a bit in, you know, especially under Jurgen Klopp in recent. The last I can think of was it Shrewsbury in the FA Cup, and they fielded a massively, you know, a weakened side. You know, is that a downside of Klopp, that he doesn't prioritise these domestic cups? Because I'm sure as a Liverpool fan you would love to win an FA Cup, but it just doesn't seem to be on the priority list of your manager.
Yeah, of course. I think a trophy's a trophy in the eyes of any fan. I think last season it was all eyes on kind of the big boy trophies. That's obviously no disrespect to the domestic ones, but with us not winning the Premier League ever, I think that was his priority. And same with the Champions League, Club World Cup, things like that. But I think this time round it might be on his agenda to think, right, well, let's try and tick off every trophy we can. So it's like I said, I do think there will be kids in there to kind of give the others a bit of a break. But it's not going to be, well, I don't think it's going to be a full youth side. There should be some seniority in there.
1 second. Okay, so obviously, you know, do you think there's going to be a shift in priorities this season? Do you think Klopp will go after one of those domestic trophies? Because obviously the Premier League, you know, although you've won it, do you think there won't be as much of a big emphasis on it again, you know, or do you want to retain it and, you know, that sort of thing?
I think the main focus is to retain it. Like, we definitely want it. I mean, who doesn't if they've won it? Even if you've won it for the 100th time, never mind the first, you want to keep it. You saw how disappointed City were to not kind of win it again. And that's the winner's mentality, which I'm glad we've got. So I think that will be the priority. However, I do think it will be nice to kind of go, not full throttle, but give it a good go in these cup runs, because it'd be nice to win something else. Yeah. You know.
Rather than the Premier League. Yeah. What a problem that must be, eh? Winning the Premier League and the Champions League. So we've got our Checker Trade trophy anyway. We don't need that.
Oh, well, I've got envy over here.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you actually. Obviously, Lincoln came to light really for most football fans in the 2016-17 season when we got to the FA Cup quarterfinals. So obviously, have you paid much attention to our rise up the pyramid, or probably through knowing me, you've probably been force fed it on Twitter? So, have you got any opinions on Lincoln?
Obviously, it was nice to meet somebody who doesn't follow a Prem or Championship team, because it's one thing I kind of think about, because obviously Liverpool haven't always won stuff, and it has been tough over the years, especially under Hodgson when we nearly got liquidated. But sometimes I sit and think it must be tough for lower teams who don't often qualify and don't often win things, and I just think it's massive for fans to just keep this ongoing spirit, even though there's never really much to celebrate, like obviously little wins and things, but if silverware is rare and promotion's rare, I just think it's such a nice thing to see a collective group of fans still as passionate as the Premier League teams, and I just think that's something special that you get with the likes of Lincoln, because I remember me and you discussed stuff and you said I don't even know what VAR is, because
no, we don't have any of that nonsense in League One. Although if we had it on Saturday, I don't think we'd have won. But obviously the cup run, you'd have seen the cup run when we knocked out. God, if I can remember, it was Guiseley, Altrincham, Oldham, Brighton, Burnley, amongst the rest. Obviously losing to Arsenal. Obviously that sort of cup run has sort of put Lincoln on the map, really, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I can think of worse ways to go out of a cup than to Arsenal.
Yeah.
Beating Burnley and Brighton too is a big win, because Burnley, I think, are quite a strong team. Yeah. Like I know that like Liverpool have their bogey teams, Crystal Palace are sometimes one of them, and Burnley always give us a run for our money.
Yeah.
So the fact that you've gone toe to toe with these big sides and then fallen to Arsenal, it's something to really be proud of. And can you imagine if you had won to Arsenal? That would have been the story of the year.
I don't think I think we had one chance in the first half, and Petr Cech made an absolutely unbelievable save, and then they went on and scored 5, which sort of was a bit of a dagger. But obviously we'll be hoping to win on Thursday. Not very likely, but just going back onto it, we talked a bit earlier about how do you think tactically, how do you think Liverpool are going to set up, and where do you think Lincoln will be able to exploit? If they come out with a youthful side, the likes of Curtis Jones, Minamino, how do you think Lincoln, a senior side, although not a very old one either, how do you think they can exploit this young Liverpool side?
I think what I've noticed is that Klopp kind of always opts for Alisson when he can, because obviously Adrian can be unreliable. So I do think Alisson will be in goal, but I think where he changes up most could be defence. So he may opt to drop Trent and kind of put Nico Williams in there. And for me, even though he's a strong defender, it depends which side he puts him on. He could opt to play Trent and Nico, but Nico's not great on the left. And I think if Lincoln can kind of figure that out and push hard on the left, then they could end up through. I think Van Dijk will start. Again, him and Alisson are kind of usually the main two he goes for. Fabinho played at centre-back against Chelsea, so that could be something else that we see. Minamino as well could start. I think it just, because a lot of these players haven't gelled as a team, and it shows. And for example, Minamino, if he's played in position, he's fantastic. He should be played just behind the striker. But if he opts to take off Mane and Salah and plays Minamino on the wing, that's another side Lincoln could get past, because that's not his natural position and he's not great there. So if Klopp makes a mistake of putting him there, it could be an easy way through for Lincoln.
And some of these players that might appear for Liverpool on Thursday won't have had a lot of minutes in the tank this season, obviously with the break due to the coronavirus. And Lincoln, we've already played 5 games domestically in the League and Cup to get to where we are. Do you think that that's going to have any factor of it at all? The fact that we might be a little bit fresher, or that might cut the gap in quality a little bit?
I think it could do, definitely. If you've got 5 under your belt so far, and we're 2 in, and obviously it's going to change from what we had at Chelsea. It's not like Klopp can say, right, everything you did at Chelsea, do again, because I really can't see that exact team starting. So it will be whether the teammates can operate together well enough, and I think it will just come down to the day. Like, I can't predict how he'll set up too much, because it's like, will he go for Curtis Jones, who scored a blinder against Everton? Everton's strongest team as well, so he could opt for Curtis, or he could put Cater in, or like I'm not sure, but I think we will show Lincoln respect, as I said earlier, and they could definitely, like, we've struggled against teams similar to Lincoln, just because we've just gone and won 2-0 against Chelsea. Every game is different, and it comes down to just how it is on the day. And I think Lincoln are going to really, really go for this. And I think we want to go for the cups. But if Klopp turns around and says, I'm not too bothered, just kind of do what you want. And if we show up, like, putting in 50% and Lincoln are really going at it, we could end up being shocked and have an upset. I think it depends if we want it enough.
Obviously, you mentioned Everton there. But in fact, about a year ago, they came down to the LNER Stadium, and they struggled. They even, I think it was at Silva at the time was a manager, and they brought a full strength team, the likes of Richarlison, Gomez, and they struggled. They had to bring on the likes of Iwobi. They just paid 40-odd million for, or whatever it was. So Lincoln can take a lot of positives from the fact that they've held the likes of Everton, although there's obviously a bridging gap between the two Merseyside clubs. But yeah, obviously Everton have come to struggle. Anyway, enough rambling. So if I could get a score prediction from you, Georgia, and obviously how I've not been very open with it, but I think we're probably going to get beat. Depending on how strong you go, I think we're probably going to get beat 3-1. But how can you see it panning out?
Do you know what? When you first said it, 3-1 is kind of what came into my head, first of all, without thinking too much, because I do think we should be winning. At the end of the day, that is no disrespect, but you think, the reigning champions of England should be winning comfortably.
There should be every team in it, yeah.
Yeah, they should be winning against a League One side on paper. But again, it's like I said, it does depend how much we want it. And I do think we will concede, I think. But yeah, I think 3-1 sounds fair. Maybe even 2-1, depending on how much Lincoln can push us. But I do think we'll get over the line, but I think it could be a tough one.
Well, thank you very much for coming on to Stacey West, Georgia. It's massively appreciated in our hour of need. Obviously, I'm sure Georgia's social media links will be put in the article that Gary writes up. But thank everybody for watching, and let's hope we can get a positive result somehow. See you later, boys.